Welcome to Unpacked, the podcast that examines how technology is reshaping business and our world, with this season focusing on generative AI. My name's Stuart Black, and I'm joined as always by the voice of the show, Think Tank's innovation lead, Arvind Ravishankar. Great to catch up with you again, Arvind. What's happening with you?
Hey Stuart, glad to be back in another episode. Super excited. Lots to talk about in AI.
Great stuff. In a few moments, we'll have Arvind's deep dive interview with Dr Kavita Ganesan, who is a PhD from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. She's written a new book, The Business Case for AI, and I can't wait to hear a little bit more about that. Arvind, can you give us the lowdown on what we're going to hear? Just the headlines, please. Why is this one important to you?
Sure. There's a staggering statistic, Stuart. 85% of AI products that are in production today fail when they go into production and launch. And this is because people haven't thought through the product beyond the pilot. And this book covers all the things you need to be thinking of before you launch your AI product. So I'm really excited to talk to Dr. Kavita today. She's got a lot of experience in this field. And so it's going to be an interesting conversation.
Good lessons for everybody. But before we get to that, let's take a quick look at a couple of big current talking points in the AI world. Our first story today is all about a new tool called Genome, if I'm pronouncing that right, which has located a treasure trove of 400,000 new materials able to power a range of future technologies from superconductors to next generation batteries. Genome stands for Graph Networks for Materials Exploration and is a deep learning tool that dramatically increases the speed and efficiency of predicting the stability of new materials. It made 2.2 million predictions, picking out the most stable elements for experimental synthesis. So Arvind, why should the public care about this one?
Stuart, this is such an amazing breakthrough, right? Because if AI can help us discover brand new materials, and in this particular story, what you're highlighting is it not only came up with new materials, but it also helped us figure out which ones are stable, which ones could be useful for us. So when you look around the world, imagine tomorrow if we could discover a whole new material that is completely like a polymer that's fully biodegradable, right? With no extra energy at all. Even most of the compostable biodegradable materials today, they require special processes. But imagine if you could have a completely biodegradable material, or imagine if you could have material that is absolutely light but very strong, now can be used towards making transportation safer. There's so many people who get injured because of accidents when you drive at 80 to 90 miles per hour. And these new materials could help save lives. So the possibilities are endless, right? And so this is an amazing breakthrough. And this is the reason why generative AI has so much of a buzz, because it's not because it can just generate new poems or it can generate new creative briefs, but it can actually generate new ideas for materials, new ideas for synthetic biology and molecules, right? So that's the reason why generative AI becomes so much more powerful and the architecture becomes so much more important. This is amazing. I'm so encouraged to hear this.
And it says in the article that it's 800 years worth of human research just done in a very short space of time by this new tool. So it's a staggering achievement.
Yeah, absolutely. And its consequences for our everyday life is mind-blowing, right? Like when you look around you, your world is full of materials that humans have created, some natural, some not natural. And imagine if you could reshape and create completely new products, like tents that can be folded into a small box, or a table that can be folded into a small box and stacked away in a room, right? The human life as we know it could change, and our lifestyles could change based on these innovations.
It's a dizzying but very exciting sci-fi frontier. So can't wait to see what comes out of this.
It is. Did you see that last the new Marvel movie called Ant-Man, where the entire his entire car shrinks into a little box?
You're
Those
saying that's
things,
possible soon?
though they sound science fiction, yes, at some point with AI, those we're going to break those barriers. Quantum physics, computing, all these
Crazy.
things that we didn't know, we're going to break through. Trust me, it's
Okay,
going to
we've
happen.
established Marvel's making documentaries now. This is radical stuff. Very exciting scientific frontiers. We're almost diving into. Great stuff. Our next story today is all about the first AI designed fashion collection to go on sale in a collaboration between fashion retailer Resolve and creative agency Maison Meta. The styles were shown at AI Fashion Week, and two of the winning humans behind these creations have no fashion background whatsoever. So, Arvind, would you be happy to wear something designed by artificial intelligence?
Sure, why not? Absolutely. In fact, if I can customize it based on what I want, that'll be even more amazing. Where I give it some inputs, saying, "Hey, here's the look I'm looking for. Can you design something for me?" That'll be pretty cool.
Would you say though that this kind of design is it cheating? Some people might not think that it's actually a real approach to something which people take so seriously.
I don't know if I would look at it as cheating. The way I look at it is that fashion designers bring a certain level of value to you and me, right? And in the future, if AI is able to do that, maybe there's a new skill that fashion designers would have to develop, or maybe their skills are used towards training these AI models to develop that fashion sense. I'm not sure, right? It's a good question. It's a good question. Personally, as a consumer, I don't think it makes a difference to me whether AI designs it or a human designs it, if it's clothing, right? So from that standpoint, I'm quite cool with it. We should talk to some fashion designers to see how they feel about it.
Well, yeah, I think it's clear that I don't know too much about fashion. You're a little bit better dressed than I am, but
Same here. No, no, no. You know, my secret is the new Bose headphones. That's how I become fashionable.
just
Other than
accessorizing.
that, nothing else. Exactly, exactly.
Okay, well, hopefully the computers will tell us what to wear and we'll get away with it. So, Arvind, can you explain a little bit more about today's deep dive interview and just tee that up for us a bit?
Sure, Stuart. I'm going to be spending time talking to Dr. Kavita Ganesan, and we're going to be discussing the business case for AI, the new book she's written. Now, in the next 1 year, a lot of enterprise leaders are going to be launching AI products. And in this episode, we're going to cover the key things that they need to be paying attention to as they launch these products and services. What's going to help them be successful, and the things, the pitfalls they need to avoid when they're launching these products and services.
We're going to take a quick break now and then come right back with Arvind's chat with Dr. Kavita Ganesan. Our think tank focuses on researching emerging technologies that will shape your future. From generative AI to exoskeletons, we study the impact these technologies will have on business, humanity, and our planet. And through our podcast, newsletters, and social media content, we have a direct line to a truly global emerging technology community. So if you'd like to find out more about the impact these technologies will have on your business, then reach out to our team at lab45thinktank.com.
Hi, folks. Welcome to another episode of Unpacked today, where we unpack difficult topics in AI and make it consumable and easy for you as enterprise leaders. We specifically unpack important topics, and today we're going to unpack the idea of taking AI into production. Uh, Many programs start with the right intentions, specifically AI based programs, but often fail when they go into production. And to discuss this today, I'm bringing in an expert, Dr. Kavita Ganesan. She has written a book called The Business Case for AI, where she discusses in depth principles, strategies where you can take your AI models successfully into production. And she discusses it from the standpoint of an enterprise leader. So, a very, very apt topic for conversation. Really excited to have her on board in our podcast. Dr. Kavita Ganesan, welcome.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Arvind. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So, Dr. Kavita, tell us what inspired you to write this book. There are so many books out there in AI. So, tell us your journey.
Yeah, so I've had a long journey in AI. So it started in 2005, where I was on the academic research side during my master's PhD program. And then, like in 2010 to 13, I went more and more into the industry side, so solving real world business problems. And as I was doing that, I was also doing consulting on the side. So I've seen a lot of problems in the field. And what I've noticed is that a lot of AI initiatives don't make it into production, not because the problems were unsolvable, but rather there were other problems that are preventing these models from making it to production. So, for example, one key problem was that they are not solving the right problems with AI. So people just thought of a cool idea and then they come up with an AI solution. And once they've developed it, there isn't a consumer for it. And this happens a lot in big companies. I've seen it firsthand. So no good problems to solve. The second thing is that there's a lack of understanding of what AI is at the leadership level. So there's mismatched expectation. So, for example, some leaders think AI can just automate workflows just like that. But that's not how AI works. AI is still very task driven. So it solves a specific problem, and you may need to pair this with supporting technologies like just software engineering or RPA based technologies. So there's a lot of problems like that that prevent these AI models from making it into production. So because I worked so extensively in putting models in production, I had insider information which I wanted to get out in a structured format. And I wanted the message to not just be within the US, but spread more widely. So that's what prompted me to write the book. And it's also the first thing that I do with my clients. I give them the book because that's a starting point of our working relationship.
Fantastic. Um, for people who are interested in reading the book, what is the key message within the?
The key message is not all problems need AI. And if you want to succeed with AI, you have to find the right problems with the right mindset for AI. So it really changes your mindset of how you look at solving AI problems.
Very interesting. And for enterprise leaders, that's really important, right? Because in today's world with generative AI, the perception is that AI is going to solve every problem out there, right? And it is the panacea for every problem. So tell us more, Dr. Kavita. As an enterprise leader, what should they start paying attention to? Today, most enterprise leaders are looking at pilot programs with AI,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
they're trying to understand how generative AI is going to solve many of the problems they have. So, what are some filters they should use, and what are some things they should be paying attention to?
Yeah, the first thing to understand is that Gen AI is not the end all be all. So it doesn't replace AI. Gen AI is just a subset of AI. There are a lot of other AI techniques which may be simpler, which can very well solve your business problems. So I think that understanding has been lost because of all the noise that's going on. Like it's all about Gen AI. So once you have that understanding, that brings you back to reality. So we have a lot of options, not just Gen AI. We have a lot of options, and then understanding what AI is on the grand scheme of things, like what does it even mean? Is it just software engineering? Is it machine learning? So just have a general understanding what types of problem it solves and how it does it, just at a very high level. Like it ingests data, it learns patterns from data, it makes predictions. So even Gen AI, it's predicting the next word, the next word, the next word. That's what it's doing. It's predicting stuff. So that high level understanding, along with understanding the use cases. So where have people used AI and what types of successes they have seen will give them more of a more a better perspective on where they can use AI within the organization and does it make sense or not? Because AI is not cheap. It's costly not just in terms of implementation, like money, like in terms of money, but also risks. There are lots of risks associated with AI. So you don't just want to use AI just for the sake of it. It has to make sense for that problem.
These most of these enterprise leaders are quite busy, and so they'll end up relying on their teams to make these some of these decisions, right? So In your experience, uh, how do you find that balance between the amount of knowledge you need to have versus the amount you outsource to your teams and rely on your teams? Will your book cover some of that, or do you think there are other resources as enterprise leaders, like what problem can be solved with what type of AI? How do they acquire that knowledge?
Yeah, I would say what they can have their teams help them with is to come up with the data. So, how is AI being used in similar industries? Parallels, draw parallels.
Hmm.
So, that will give them, so let your team subordinates do the groundwork for you.
Okay.
So, find that data and present it to you in a way that makes sense to the company and to your domain. Because the information out there is too generic and there's too much of noise. So by having your teams do that, you're going to get more curated information. And that's, I would say, is the best way and the easiest way to get started.
That is so interesting. And you have honed in on data. Tell us the importance of data in some of these AI programs and taking AI into production.
Yeah, so data is crucial for a lot of different things. So a lot of leaders nowadays think that because of Gen AI, we don't need to collect data, we don't need a data strategy, data is just gone. But that's far from the truth. So imagine if you want to train your own LLM. So what is the starting point? It's data. So if you're not collecting that data, then you're not going to be able to train this large scale model using your company specific data. So that's one example. The other is even to understand what problem you're solving, you need data to do that. So let's say you're trying to fix your search engine, which customers don't quite like, and you think that there's some problems with it, and you want to infuse it with AI to help the ranking, like what Google does every day. So to understand, like even what are the queries that are being issued? What's the rank of the item that's being clicked on? Is it on the first page? Is it on the second page? All of that requires data. So data collection is still a very integral part of AI initiatives. And then to fine tune models. So let's say you're starting with a open source foundational model, but it doesn't work on your company specific problems because it doesn't understand your language. So maybe you're in the healthcare domain. So then you need to fine tune these models. So even fine tuning requires good data, and that good data will come from you, from the company.
So, would you say then, can I take a provocative approach and say that you shouldn't even start applying AI or try to use AI to solve until you know that you have the right data sets for it? Is that the starting point?
I wouldn't go that far, but I would say start with the opportunities. So, so data is one thing which you have to proactively do. But on the AI side of things, you will have to start looking for opportunities. So, finding the right areas where you can apply AI and then backtracking and seeing that do I have the data to support this initiative, because that can then further expand your data strategy. So you may already have a data strategy going on, but that AI opportunity analysis will give you more data to work with, more you need to expand your data strategy essentially.
Got it. So then the two major things I've taken away are one, you want to find the right problems, and the way to find the right problems is you can look for parallels from other industries or other examples for areas where AI has been successful. And then once you find those use cases and problems you want to solve, the second step is to then make sure that you have the data for it, right?
Correct.
Make sure you have the right data and it is in a format that can be used to train an AI model or fine tune an AI model. Um, Once you have passed that stage, Dr. Kavita, what's next? What are the other things they have to be considering when they go into production or decide to go into production?
Yeah, so there's one more part to the opportunity side. Drawing parallels is one way, but in my book, I also have a framework to find AI opportunities in any workflow.
Oh, that's
So,
fantastic.
yeah,
Okay.
it starts with finding like complex decision making problems. So, I call it making AI sense. So, the problem first has to make AI sense. Then, the
Hmm.
second thing is it has to make business sense. So, business sense simply means it shouldn't be a one-time problem. It should be a problem that's big enough. With the use of some form of automation, you'll get some tangible benefit. So I call this making business sense.
Got
And the
it.
third step is data. So do I have the data to support the initiative? So it's a step-by-step framework.
So I encourage our audience to go buy the book Business Case for AI and look at this framework. It sounds like a really interesting framework. Tell us more about the business sense and the data sense. I think the business sense is about scaling. We get it. The data sense, we've covered it. Tell us about the AI sense. That's interesting. What makes a problem AI suitable?
Yeah, so one example is if you have to like analyze hundreds of data points to render one decision. So take credit card fraud detection problem. So each transaction, you'll have to determine is this fraudulent or not. And this is happening rapidly, like millions of transactions a minute or a second. And to do this quickly, you need to still look at hundred or thousands data points. So this is a complex problem because you have to do it on a case by case basis. It's not something that can be just generalized. So this is an example of a complex problem. So looking at multiple data points to render one decision. Those rules won't just easily fit in our head. Then another example is like a physician. They'll have to use their training. They'll have to pair it with patient data, and they'll have to use maybe literature that's out there to maybe render a diagnosis. So that's also a very complex problem, and you can potentially teach an AI system to think like a physician in a very narrow way. So that's what I call a complex problem. Now with Gen AI in the loop, it's also creative problem solving. So how do you create stuff? So that's another added facet.
That is true. And do you think that? So now I'm going to go back to the early part of the conversation, where they feel like Gen AI can solve everything, right? Now you have spoken about it more from a creative sense, but the new transformer architecture and some of these foundation models, what I'm hearing is that the transformer architecture is now being applied to areas such as material science, areas such as virus detection. Like, how do you detect new viruses that we don't know are a threat yet? So they are using the transformer architecture to train such models. So do you think these foundation models will open up the opportunities for AI, where that AI sense is going to become a lot broader? Or do you still feel that that area is important and you got to pay close attention to it?
Yeah, if you take that problem that you said in material science, if you dig deeper, you'll find that the problem that it's trying to solve will be a complex decision making problem. If you go dig deep to what they're really using AI for, could be just a complex decision making problem or not. So Gen AI can be used for all these narrow prediction tasks, and it can also be for generation tasks. So yeah, it could become a bit broader with the creative generation aspects, but the complex decision making still holds for a lot of problems, for a majority of the problems, I think.
So that's the foundation, right? Sort of that's the root foundation of how you diagnose if you should be applying AI to a particular situation or not, especially
Yeah.
with how expensive AI could get as you build it out.
Yeah, AI systems are still very narrow. So until we have like common sense reasoning where we can generalize our thinking, learn from one domain, and then apply it to another domain, it's still very narrow. We need to think about it in a very narrow fashion.
Do you have any statistics for our audience on how many AI projects on average succeed or fail when they go into production? Are there any thumb rules that our enterprise leaders could use to talk to their teams?
Yeah, a few years ago, there was a prediction by Gartner saying that 85% of AI projects fail. But
Wow.
and I can attest to that
Wow.
majority fail.
Wow, 85%. That's a huge number. Wow.
Yeah.
Um, got it. And wow. Huh. And are all these failures predominantly on the front end, or when you look at the distribution of failures, the front end of how you diagnose the problem, how you make sure that it makes business sense, and how you make sure you have the right data, that's the front end of the process. What about the back end of the process? Do problems fail once you get these things right? Are
Yeah.
there other hurdles that cause AI to fail in production?
Yeah. Yeah, I can talk about a few more. So another area is lack of evaluation. If you remember in 2016, there was the Twitter chatbot that was released, and it was a benign chatbot that was just chatting with, that was just tweeting at different users. And over like 24 hours, it became racist because people were feeding it with bad information, and it was repeating that same bad information. So that was a product of Microsoft. And I think the reason why it failed was because they didn't test it sufficiently before it was released into production. So lack of testing is a big reason why models fail in production. So once you put in production, it goes sideways.
Yes, and
So
got it. In fact, we did a episode with Dr. Anupam Datta, CMU professor, and this is a specialty. He looks at testing and evaluation, and I think he also mentions that a lot of models fail when they go into production because of improper testing, proper evaluation, observability, explainability. These are all really important aspects as you go on that side. This 85% number, in as you work in as a consultant, are you seeing it get better, worse? Well, how is it trending?
yeah, I'm seeing it get worse, or it's about the same. Like a company that I worked with a while ago, they were struggling with AI, and till today they're still struggling with AI. So they have not found the right opportunities with AI because they've shifted from AI to Gen AI, and then they couldn't find the right AI use cases, so they're just experimenting with it, and things are going nowhere. So it's all in the finding the right problems and then finding the solutions that fit the problem, not just trying to fit Gen AI to the problem.
And
So
when you dig deeper, Dr. Kavita, especially because you come from the consulting background, when you observe these leaders, what is preventing, to some degree, as I listen to your framework, it's extremely insightful, and once you understand it, you can start implementing it, right? You can start mapping AI problems. You can start looking for data. So, what is preventing these enterprise leaders from doing these things that make good sense, right? Is it time pressure? Is it lack of knowledge? What is the Can you peel the onion a little for us?
yeah, so it's to me it's clear it's lack of strategy. They're chasing shiny objects. So just because Gen AI is a new thing, they want to focus on it. But some of the problems that they have in their company may just need simple machine learning models.
I Okay, yes, that's got
Yeah,
it.
so it's okay to experiment with Gen AI, like have some projects focused on that just for understanding what it is, how to productionize it. But you also need this strategic approach where you're really looking at problems in your business that can really be impacted by AI, like huge business impact. So
That
that's a strategic part. I think leaders are just focused on the innovation part, but they forget the strategy.
mm,
And I think once they find the right problems, building those models is not difficult.
yeah, and in fact, to your point, what's triggering it, I was having a recent conversation with a Fortune 500 company where they were looking to use Gen AI to improve their HR work streams, right? And what to your point, I think that because they don't understand the technology at a deeper level, they think Gen AI could solve everything. In fact, if you have two HR software systems that aren't talking to each other and sharing data, that's the real root cause. Gen AI is not going to solve that problem, right?
Yeah.
You've got to have two softwares interfacing with each other. And this company had about 25 different HR software that don't talk to each other regularly, right? And don't share data with each other. And there's interface problems. So 50 to 75% of the problems they were stating could be solved by just making the softwares compatible with each other.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
you apply Gen AI to solve other. So this misunderstanding that a lot of the basic problems that exist in companies can be solved using Gen AI. I think is a root cause for sure,
Yeah,
right?
and to your point, Arvind, so what you mentioned was a data integration problem. So the
Exactly.
systems are not talking to one another. So first, data integration comes into play, and maybe within data integration, you may use Gen AI to maybe merge records because it's so good at finding similar records. So Gen AI may play a small role there, but that whole thing is not going to be solved with Gen AI. It's
Yeah.
Gen AI in combination with other things.
Yeah. So don't go after the shiny objects. Develop a deeper understanding of what the different models are capable of, right? And
Yeah.
what models can be used. Now, there is a perception that generative AI is the new form of AI. And a lot of the traditional AI and ML models are going to become obsolete over some time. And the transformer architecture will take over a lot of that. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so if you're talking about Gen AI in the form of ChatGPT, um, I don't think it really applies because there are smaller LLM models that you can fine tune to perform specific tasks. And those are transformer based models. They are LLM models, but they are single task models. They are specialized models, which you can easily deploy in production. If you're saying chat gpt will replace all other types of like single specialized models, that's not going to be true because the specialized models are much easier to deploy. They are more accurate, and they're more predictable in their behaviors. And for some problems, you just need some really simple models, like take recommendation systems, for example. You can apply simple collaborative filtering type models, which is not a complex model, but it works really well. And it's easy to deploy. And you can, it's dynamic. As you add data, it keeps working. So yeah, so I would say no, it's not going to replace like specialized models, classical models, but it will be like in parallel working with the other models.
Fantastic. And Dr. Kavita, for our audience, if they're interested in talking with you further, are you available? Can they reach out to you? How do they reach out to you if they want to discuss this topic a lot more?
Sure. I can be found on LinkedIn, or you can visit my website, kavita-ganesan.com.
We will
And
put
you
it
can also,
into our podcast link. We will add that in your website. Okay.
yeah. And also you can email me at kavita@opinosis.ai. So Opinosis is my company name.
Oh, it's an interesting name. Tell us about the company's name. How'd you come up with that
Yeah.
name?
So the company's name started with my PhD project. Uh, yeah, it was an opinion summarizer.
Okay.
So which was one of the startups that I was trying to build. And from an opinion summarization startup, it evolved into an AI consulting company.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, Wipro itself may want to connect with you very soon. So maybe after this podcast, you and I should chat. I'm sure you can come and help us at Wipro on some of the projects
Yeah.
we're doing. We're doing a bunch of AI projects. So, Dr. Kavita, I think the frameworks you've discussed today, the pointers you've given, I'm sure our business leaders would appreciate it. And I think I would encourage everyone to also buy the book, Business Case for AI, and read it. Sounds like there's a lot of good frameworks there you can consider, especially as you're going to go into production or as you deploy AI with your companies. So, Dr. Kavita, what are some other books you would recommend? Like, try to pick the top three books in AI that business leaders should read. Apart from Business Case for AI, what would those books be?
So there's another good book called The AI Factor. That's I forgot the author's name, but it's also very grounded on practical applications of AI. And Tom Davenport's old book, The AI Advantage, kind of gives a background on AI. The newer books, I've not really found one that I would recommend as yet. I'm not sure if some have been written by ChatGPT, but I haven't found one to recommend.
Yeah, it'll be fun when we start reading books written by ChatGPT about AI, right?
Yeah.
Um, Fantastic. Any parting words of advice for our enterprise leaders? I know everybody today is looking to deploy AI.
Yeah.
Any parting advice for them?
Yeah, I would say forget AI, look for the problems that automation can solve. Look
I
for
love it.
software automation problems.
I love it. Forget AI, focus on the problems, specifically automation problems and problems at scale and complexity, right? I think
Yeah.
that was something I took away. Problems
Yeah.
just complex is where AI applies. Fantastic. Dr. Kavita, this is great. Thank you so much for being on our podcast. A lot of great insights. And we look forward to maybe having you again in some of the future episodes.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Really interesting interview, Arv, and maybe you could just summarize the main things that you want people to come away really thinking about.
Let's start with the fact that Dr. Kavita Ganesan gave us, or a statistic which staggered me, right? 85% of AI projects that go towards production fail. And I think the key insight that she drew out for us was the fact that the reason for the failure is actually not because of the way it's implemented or the production issues. It's because they were not chosen correctly. The upfront work that the leaders did in deciding to choose these AI products and services were not done thoughtfully. And there were three major things that a leader can think about before they go down this path. Just think of the amount of investment these people are spending, right? There's millions of dollars of investment that enterprise leaders are spending in developing AI. So, what are those three things you can do right at the beginning of a project that prevents heartburns later on for you, your team, and everybody else around you, right? Resources are scarce today and you don't want to waste them. So, number one, AI sense. Using AI as a blanket tool to solve all problems is not viable. AI solves certain problems, and in order to find those certain problems, you look at the second part of the framework, which is data sense. Where do you actually have data? If you don't have data, you can't train the AI models. If you don't have access to the right data, you can't train the AI models. So the AI models become intelligent because of data. So you got to develop your data sense, right? So number one, AI sense, what AI products to apply when, to solve what problems. And number two, data sense, what data do you actually have? So developing a sense for these things is really important right at the beginning of your project. And the third one is business sense. This part I think most people have, which is developing a business justification. But sometimes you have technologists leading these AI projects. So you can get carried away by the technology, but you got to make sure that you got good business justification for those projects. So get those three things right at the beginning to save yourself this heartburn, and don't become a part of that 85% who don't lead to success or don't become successful, right? Be a part of the 15% who are successful, right? So that would be the major insight here.
So remember the big three. Fantastic. So I'll just sign off by saying thanks to Arvind Ravishankar. If you like our podcast, please like, subscribe, or tell a friend. I'm Stuart Black, and see you next time on Unpacked.